I started studying about this group home model. It's also called transitional housing, where you offer a fully furnished house and you can offer it to rent it by the bed or by the room. So this particular house was a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath house. We set up 2 rooms as private rooms and 2 rooms as shared rooms with 2 beds in it. So a total of 6 people. My desire was to use the property to house young people who were aging out of foster care because they're given a stipend and they're like, you're 18, go live.
Welcome to the Share the Wealth Show, where minority professionals can learn to escape the racial wealth gap and catapult themselves into abundance. Your host, Nicole Pendergrass, grew her net worth from being negative to multiple 6 figures. Join her on her investigative mission to expose secret strategies of the wealthy so we can all have the tools needed to build the life and legacy we were created to possess. Now it's time for the show.
Okay, everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Share the Wealth Show. And this is the show where we discuss strategies on how to build, grow, and protect minority wealth. And thank you for joining us back again today. And you are going to love what we're digging into today. Today, we are digging in with Donnise Webb. And Donnise actually she does a lot. We had a phone call and she does so much stuff. She does some traditional rentals. She does some affordable housing, is a group home. She does midterm rentals. She's an experienced investor with like multi-million dollars in real estate syndications. Like I know she has land. That's not even in her bio. She's trying to develop and build up on that. So there's so many different ways that we can go. Donnise is also wife, mother, and proud grandmother of 4. And I just want to thank you for coming in and sharing your experience with us today.
Thank you, Nicole. I'm happy to be here.
Great, great. I have a random question.
Okay.
If you could instill a piece of advice in a baby's mind, what advice would you give?
In a baby's mind, like my little 4 grandchildren.
Yeah, so I guess a baby, of course, a baby can't understand but so much. But like a baby who could, and they said baby, I think toddler, like
yeah,
some kind of understanding.
Yeah, I would instill exploring everything. I'm a believer that you learn from your environment. And one of the things when I was raising my son, who's now an adult and a father of 3, is giving experiences so that you can see beyond what's in front of you. So he did a lot of travel. He did a lot of sports. Just experience as much as you can so that you can know and find what you're passionate about.
I love that answer. That's great. So what got you to that? Like, are you an explorer?
What got me to that? Well, I've always loved travel. I think that growing up myself, I was born in New York and my family's from the country of Panama. And we used to go every summer as little kids to Panama to spend the summers with our grandparents. And just, we got to do a lot of travel, a lot of exploring. And I really feel that it helped to, I won't say differentiate me, but you can see the difference between someone who has had a lot of different experiences versus someone who has never left their backyard. And I think for me, that played a huge role in who I am today, and also with regard to my son and how he was raised. So I do see that difference.
Wow. And you know what? And I've traveled some. I am by far not the world traveler. I've been everywhere. And I really, really want to do more of the travel and go through where like the locals and really experience the culture and not just be like, that cruise ship traveling where you hop off, you're there in a touristy area for like an hour. And you go, no, I want to like actually do other things in my travel, which I've done a little bit of that, but probably not as much as I would like. So you have just inspired me to continue my travel duties.
Yeah.
Except my kids are also still very young, and it's hard to travel. I know people travel with their kids, but that just gives me anxiety thinking about traveling with them.
Well, one of the things that I found with regard to my son, who was an only child, he did a lot of traveling with student groups, and I highly recommend that experience. From middle school and high school, he went to China, he went to Australia, he went to Paris and London, all with student groups. So they're supervised groups and they got immersed into these different areas. And so I would highly recommend that for anyone who can afford to do it for their kids, because it just opens their eyes to the world around them.
Nice. And you know what? And that's why everyone is listening to this podcast so they can learn the strategies on how to be able to afford to do that for kids, which I know we're going to dig into today. Okay. So I did a little bit about your background, but give me your version of it and like, what are you doing now today? And what are you most excited about out of what you're doing now?
Okay, so I'm a corporate attorney. I've worked with the same company in Miami, Florida for 22 years. And as a result of that, it's really afforded me the ability to, afford a nice lifestyle. But the reality is, and I'm sure you talk about it to your listeners, that having just a job is not going to get you to the point of financial freedom, no matter what type of 9 to 5 you do, unless you're one of the top people in the company earning hundreds of thousands of dollars. The reality is that, and this is something I learned later in life. I wish I had learned it when I was in my 20s or even my 30s, but you really should look into having a job is great, but have something else, something that's your own business, your own side hustle, just something that you can control your future and that you can build to create the kind of future that you want. And that was one of the things that I did, really with real estate starting off. And also I dabbled into franchise restaurants. I had 2 franchise restaurants for about 7 years. And that was around the time when I started realizing that you really need to have multiple streams of income. You really need to have your own business, your own side hustle. And so I did a lot of research and fell in love with this restaurant franchise, and we ended up having 2 of them. And through that process, though, I learned a lesson that owning that type of business, a restaurant franchise, anything that, you have to sell it really was just buying myself an expensive second job, because you're only as good as that last food item you sell. If your restaurant is closed, you make no money. And so that kind of led to me looking for ways of investing passively, earning passive income. So that's active income, right? And so looking towards passive income, that's when I really started to explore real estate. And I'm sure we'll talk more about that. And now, me being where I am now, I'm very focused on real estate investing for the purpose of building passive wealth.
Okay. So that's very interesting. I had no idea about the restaurant franchisees. So you started with the restaurants and then moved into real estate.
Correct.
Okay. So then what was when you made that realization that you had bought yourself a second expensive job? Um, how long did it take you to transition? Did you immediately sell those and then buy real estate, or did you step your way in? Did you buy some real estate and then slowly let go of those? Like, how did that transition happen?
So I had one rental property while I had the restaurant franchises. It was a rental property that I purchased, and I was actually renting to my dad, who had retired and moved down to Miami. And so I did have that property, and it was a rental property. And we had these restaurant businesses for about, like I said, 7 years, give or take. And during that process, I was not involved in real estate because I had my full-time job. I was raising my son as a single mom, and I had this restaurant. I was crazy. uh, But yeah, so we wound down the businesses and, sold one of them and just closed the other one and just moved on from there. And then from there, I just really, I really wanted to learn what are ways to earn passive income. So like a lot of people, you read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Cash Flow Quadrant, you learn about, okay, this is what I should be looking at. And so I started looking into different ways of real estate investing.
Looking to build wealth with real estate? Are you all tapped out on YouTube University and ready to get help tailored to your specific situation and goals? Have you always known that you are a little different from the crowd, that you never liked following the status quo, and that you're just tired of living in mediocrity? You want to build wealth on your own terms outside of Wall Street? Well, then maybe the Microfamily Mavericks mentorship program can help with that. It's a community where I handhold you through the process of buying your first small commercial multifamily building, because not everyone is ready for 100 units out the gate. Why multifamily? Because it gives your rental income a hedge against vacancy. Imagine what happens when your single family rental tenant leaves, right? And why commercial 5+ units? Because you have much more control over increasing the building's value in the commercial space, and then in turn, increasing your own net worth. Starting small is a stepping stone to so much more, because then you can tap that equity and buy another building and another and another, and you get the point. So increasing your cash flow and your ability to be job optional along the way. It's all a part of the journey. So if you think big, but you want to start small, and if you know multifamily real estate is a way for you to open the door to building a life of freedom, abundance, and legacy, but you just need someone to guide you step by step, and you want to be surrounded by other people on the same journey, doing the same thing, then just click the link in the show notes to find out a little bit more about the Microfamily Mavericks, and I look forward to potentially seeing you on the inside. So now back to the show.
The first thing I looked into was tax lien and tax deed investing. And that was around 2017 that I attended my first real estate, course. It was like a 3-day training only on tax liens and tax deeds. And then from there, I just, continued to learn. I was a student of YouTube University. And learned a lot there, and then as well started identifying influential experts, not the gurus, but the gurus in different areas. So part of it was also learning, because there's so many ways to invest in real estate, so many ways. You have to find what works for you, and the only way you're going to understand what works for you is to learn a little bit about the different ways: wholesaling, buy and hold, apartment syndications, all of those different things, tax lien, tax deed investings. There's so many different ways, investing in land. So I just started becoming a student, and I joined a women's group, a real estate investor group called the Real Estate Investor Goddesses. And what I liked about them is that they talked about all of the different areas of real estate investing. So you could really get an understanding of the different areas and kind of pick and choose. Okay, I think I want to learn more about this. I want to learn more about that. And ultimately, my next step was getting involved in syndications. So if you're familiar with syndications, it's where you can be a limited partner and buy an apartment building or a commercial building, and you invest your money. You don't have to worry about the management of it. It's managed by experienced operators, and you get a monthly rate of return. They hold the property for typically 3 to 5 years. And at the end of that period of time, when they sell the building, you get your money back, plus you get a share of the proceeds of the sale. And you also get the tax benefits of owning real estate during that 3 to 5 year period. So that was, to me, amazing. And I participated in 4 of those. I have participated in 4 of those.
Okay, so you covered a lot. Now I'm like tracking in my head. So you joined, you first learned about tax liens and deeds.
Correct.
Did you start investing in tax liens and deeds, or you were still in the discovery phase of all the different strategies to decide what you wanted to do?
Correct. I was in the strategy phase. Later on, I did invest in two tax deed properties in Gary, Indiana, where I invested with a friend of mine, so we still own those properties.
And what are those, single families?
They're vacant lots that we're planning on building. So we're going to be building houses on those.
Okay. So you're gonna build, what's the build plan? To build single family?
Single families, yeah,
on each
new
one?
constructions.
Okay, so that's where the land and the development comes in. There's so many different things
I
happening.
know.
Um, so you got into, you bought the tax liens and tax deeds. You joined Real Estate Investor Goddesses, which also expanded your mindset and helped you learn about a bunch of different strategies. From there, you learned about syndication. So you
Right.
invested as a passive limited partner, which, guys, whether you're going to be active or passive, you are still an investor because you
Yeah.
have to analyze and look at the sponsor, make sure they're reputable and they have experience, and look at the deal in the market and have some knowledge that can guide you as to whether the deal that this sponsor is bringing to you, it actually fits something that you would be comfortable investing in. So you still have to have on an investor hat, whether you're doing all the day-to-day work or not, right?
100%. That's absolutely true.
Yeah. So how did you vet your sponsors?
So the founder of Real Estate Investor Goddesses had done multiple deals prior. So you look at their track record. How many deals have they done? How many deals have they done to completion, full cycle, meaning they've bought the property, they've managed it for 3 to 5 years, and they've successfully exited by selling or refinancing. That's super important. You want to know what their track record is. And so I getting to know the sponsor, who was Monique Hom is her name, the Real Estate Investor Goddess founder. I felt comfortable investing with her on that first property. And then as I was looking into and learning about syndications during that process, I noticed who were the syndicators that all the other syndicators were talking about. You know what I mean? And really looking to them to kind of say, okay, this person, this company is reputable. And so I invested with Monique. I invested with another group that was highly reputable. And then again with Monique, and then with another goddess from that program who has property in Mexico. So we have a property in Mexico that we're invested in.
Nice.
But you're absolutely right. You have to do your due diligence because it's not a guarantee that that project's gonna succeed.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And you can't just be mad that you didn't get a distribution in a particular month or something happened in the market and the deal went sour. Like, it may be because of the sponsor, it may be the market, it may be the deal.
right.
You just have to see what actually is happening and not just go in blindly because you're an LP and you don't have voting rights per se, but you can decide whether to get into that deal. It's still an investment. Um, I'm thinking of timeline, right? So you joined, which came first, the land from the deed, the tax deed, or the syndication?
Syndications did first. That
Syndication.
was around 2019.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Then you got the land, and then sprinkled, probably syndication sprinkled before and after
Out
some of
there.
the land. And then we are going to talk about your group home model. And then you also you had that you've done some midterm rentals and things like that as well. So I bet that's all like in that same kind of bucket or time frame. But this group home model, when did that come about in the time frame after the
So,
land?
so in 2020, I purchased a single family house here in Miami, Florida. And it was from people that I knew. So it was 4 siblings that had inherited a house from their mother who unfortunately passed away. And one of the siblings is my nephew. So they called me one day and said, somebody just offered us $150,000 for this house, for our house. and the house was in a very bad state of disrepair. You have four, kids that are in their 20s, none of them had money to fix it. They all are grown and want to go do their own thing. They don't necessarily want the house. So I told them, look, if you're going to sell that property to someone for that amount of money, you're going to sell it to me.
Are you enjoying this episode? Then stop what you're doing right now. Head over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a rating and review. It really helps our show get pushed to more people who are looking for the information that we're sharing here. We have to share the wealth. If you listen to us on YouTube, make sure you like the episode that you're listening to right now and subscribe to our channel. Then share the channel with somebody else. There are people out there looking for the information you're listening to right now, so make sure you share it with someone who you know needs it. Now, back to the show.
And so they did sell it to me. So it was a fair deal. And I bought it subject to the existing mortgage. So that's a creative financing strategy where you buy the property, the deed is put in your name, but if there's a mortgage on the property, the mortgage stays in the name of the mortgagee, and you just continue to make the payments. The great thing about that for me was that the mortgage was low. So the mortgage was about, I want to say like $50,000 at that time. The interest rate was 2%.
What? Oh, those are the days.
And so the mortgage payment was about $1,000 a month for this property. So the total purchase price was 150. So I came up with 90,000, give or take, that was distributed among the four siblings, and then I took over the mortgage. From there, I had to rehab the property because it wasn't, like I said, in a bad state of repair. It needed a new roof, needed new septic. It had mold, it had termites, very severe termite damage. And once you start opening up the walls, it's just, it's a mess. So we ended up doing pretty much a full rehab on the property. And just, talking numbers with all of that, I was all in between the purchase price out of pocket and the rehab, about $200,000. Back then in 2020, when I bought the property, the ARV was about $250,000. So still in a good position. So I was still on the right side of it. Once we rehabbed the property, or during the rehab, I was studying about group homes. One of the things about Miami, Florida is that it's not affordable to live here. Sort of like in New York, right? Not affordable to live. And so I started studying about this group home model. It's also called transitional housing, where you offer a fully furnished house and you can offer it to rent it by the bed or by the room. So this particular house was a 4-bedroom, 1.5 bath house. We set up 2 rooms as private rooms and 2 rooms as shared rooms with 2 beds in it. So a total of 6 people. My desire was to use the property to house young people who were aging out of foster care, because they're given a stipend and they're like, you're 18, go live. And so I did a course on group homes and online self-study where it talked about different ways of marketing the property to find people. And I did all of that marketing and it really didn't bear any fruit. So I said, I need to get this house filled, these beds filled. So I went the route of marketing the property on like roomies.com, Facebook Marketplace, different avenues that have the advertised rooms for rent. Zillow, I believe I did also, so that I was able to get the beds filled. And so right now that was in 2020 that I purchased the property. We probably got the rehab done in 2021. And since then, we've been pretty much full as far as all the beds being rented. So that's been a blessing for us and a blessing for these young ladies. I have 6 young ladies. They're all in their 20s. They all work. They're all self-pay. And, it's got a community that's been developed there with these young women.
That's that's fantastic. And I just love the concept because it really does help answer this affordable housing issue. Now,
Yes.
that's not going to work for everybody. Like if you have a young family, maybe you have to think of something as a different model if you're the investor. But for individuals who, are working or on some type of voucher or whatever it is, but they can't get like their own apartment.
Yeah.
Maybe they don't qualify for an apartment. They don't make
Yeah.
enough for an apartment. But them renting a room can help them save up and get maybe some debt paid down or whatever it is. I guess besides the concept of that, and when I understand when people are like on a voucher or some kind of program that's helping to pay for their housing, I can understand them wanting to follow, I'm thinking about like house rules because they don't want to
Yes.
lose their voucher. But what has been your experience renting just to people who self-pay when it comes to different personalities who don't know each other, living in the same house, especially the ones who are sharing a room? That just like that takes me back to like college times. And if these people are
Like,
not are like way older than college or out of that realm, like it might be hard to get adults back into a dorm room kind of situation, right? Even if it is helping them. But how have you found like fights or arguments or things like that? And how do you, rectify any issues? Has that been a big problem?
that's a great question. Fortunately, it has not been a big problem, but occasionally things do arise. With my two rooms that are shared rooms, you talk about college students. Actually, four of the young women that have been in the house, they came from one of the local colleges. They had graduated from the local college where they lived, dorm style, and they needed a place to stay. So they occupied the two shared rooms. And so they already knew each other from before. So that worked out really, really good. So we do have house rules. Everyone signs a licensee agreement which is very detailed, outlining how much they pay a month, what it includes, what is expected of them. And I'm upfront with them from the beginning as far as the house rules, because if they don't want to live by the house rules, if they feel like they can't do it, then they shouldn't, accept and move in. So we haven't had any real big problems. Our house rules include things like you can't have overnight guests. There's no boys, no boys allowed, that type of thing. Respect everybody's privacy. Don't go into anyone's room. Everyone shares in the cleaning of the house. Everyone's responsible for their own food and whatnot. So, once we have an understanding of the rules which are laid out there, we also have a group chat by text chat. So sometimes, for example, recently someone left dishes in the sink and left it there for like, a full day. And so someone sent me a picture of the dishes in the sink. And I just put in the group chat, ladies, remember, you're supposed to clean up after yourself right away. Do not leave dishes in the sink, things like that. And then it's resolved. So there hasn't been any huge issues as far as people fighting or anything like that. We had one young lady who we accepted for a shared room that did come from one of the agencies, because I did have a bed available. And she lasted probably about a day where I had to actually ask her to leave because she was, even though we went through all the rules with her, she was very naturally loud and boisterous and disruptive. And I think in her mind, she didn't realize it. You know what I mean? Some people are just extra. She was very extra, and she had a roommate, and, and the other people in the house were not very comfortable. So I told her that she would have to find somewhere else. So I look for people who I hope or anticipate will connect with the others in the house. So we do an interview process. If it's a roommate situation, like, the shared room that I had an empty bed, I do have the existing roommate participate in the interview process as well. So
Yeah, I definitely was going to ask that if they participate in the interview process, but I think
Yeah.
so then I guess you haven't come up with this, but it's like, what if it's someone you feel is good, but the roommate is just like is being very particular and shooting down anybody who you're bringing in to potentially interview? Like, what would you do in that situation, or has that come up?
Has not come up. So that one situation I just told you about was the only time that we had a problem that, reared its head. And the young ladies, it's important to note the ladies that have been with me, at least two of them have been with me for 2 years. And, I think the most recent one has been there maybe about 4 months, but everyone has been there at least a year. So that's a testament to the fact that they're able to cohabitate together. They're all very happy there, and they have formed their own little community. So again, I try to get personalities that I think will mesh with the group, but you never know what'll happen. I would, I would look at the entire situation.
Yeah.
If something were to arise where there's conflict, and try to resolve it. If I was not able to resolve it, I would really probably defer to the one that's been there for a long time, because I know them now, and I trust their judgment, and they're open to having new people come in. So they're community oriented. So
Great. So other with the lady who had to leave, she didn't give any kind of pushback, or I would just be nervous that someone would get like upset or violent or destroy my property because I'm asking
right.
you, especially after one day of being there.
Yeah. Yeah. She was very upset, and she called her auntie while she was at the house. And put her auntie on the phone, and her auntie started, like, why are you putting her out? And I explained to her that she was being disruptive in the house. And as I'm calmly explaining to the auntie the situation, the young lady is screaming and yelling, at me. So the auntie was like, okay, I understand, and told her, look, just leave the house. So, you
Okay,
know,
that's nice. Um, okay, so besides trying to vet and feel out personality matches, what other like tenant, I don't want to call them tenants, but like resident like vetting criteria do you use to try to
right.
see like what's your process or your criteria for a tenant outside of personality?
Okay, guys, don't kill me, but I'm going to have to cut this episode short. This is too juicy, and we need to do this in a part 2. So stay tuned for the next episode that airs, and you can hear the rest of our conversation.
Did you love this episode of Share the Wealth Show? Be sure to connect with Nicole by following her on LinkedIn, Instagram, or Facebook. If you picked up any of the gems that were dropped by today's guest, make sure you not only put them in your bag, but if you know of someone who would benefit from this information, don't keep it to yourself. Share the wealth, and make sure to leave us a rating and review. We'll see you for next week's episode. Subscribe so you'll be notified.